Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA wrap. Well, we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, each time asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming one. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. What we do is we look at what happened and what we expected to happen, and we see if there's a divergence between those things. Sometimes we're spot on. Matter of fact, a reasonable amount of time we're spot on, but sometimes we're dead wrong, and the market gives us clues, and those clues do not pan out, and we are in the midst of those sorts of clues right now. Before I go at the numbers, I want to talk about the clues. I mean, we've had 2 trading days of clues that have both failed. Last night we had over-unders on the Dow and on the S&P 500 where volume was lighter, you had an extended move, you go over, you're back under, that's a 2-bar reversal. Happened on both the indexes. Now we did have strength in the other indexes and we noted that, but this looked to carry the day. And we did open up down today. Matter of fact, we opened down fairly big, about 15 points I believe, on the S&P, but we ended up higher on the day, as you can see here. That push back was bought, wasn't sold. Sellers did not show up. If we look prior to today, on the day before, right, and I'll go over and I'll use the IXIC, the NASDAQ composite. Here we had a failure. It was on this bar. This was 2 days ago, also giving us an indication that this market was probably going to try to pull back, right? So we have an extended move, we do a test failure against that breakdown bar, over, back under it, less volume, all the above. Yet it couldn't pull back yesterday, right? And so that's 2 days now running, signals given, both days failures to follow through on the signals. You know, as I said last night, this needs to follow through to the downside. If it doesn't, right, then we're not in tune, and we're definitely not in tune with that ideal of some sort of a pullback. And as you can see today, you know, it started that way, it looked like it was going to happen, but they bought it from the get-go and they never let go, and it was a trend day up after another big trend up already. You know, when the market doesn't do what it should do, then there's something else at work. Something that we can't see or we don't understand. Something's at work. We have to respect that. We have to respect that whatever it is, it's out there and it's doing it. As a matter of fact, if you just go down the list, you can't hardly name anything that's positive right now. Yet this market is climbing to new highs. You know, that's more bullish than anything I can say. You know, when you've got all these bearish things that should be taking this market down, but they're not. And when I look at it from that perspective, it's like, okay, for whatever reason, this thing wants to go up. The only thing I could say right now is positive, you know, in a fundamental way is the earnings probably going to end up, for the earnings season, they're probably going to end up a little bit better than people expected, you know, as the earnings season got underway. Now, that's still worse than was forecast 2 months ago. You know, they always ratchet it down. But, you know, companies still making money. They're going to make 8.5%, 9%. You can't argue with, you know, growth in earnings. That eventually drives stocks, right? And maybe that's what's moving this thing. One thing I have to say, and I've said this to others before, you know, and I'm just kind of going through some things that I just think are important to cover before I get into the charts. Conviction is one thing, right? But you got to have discipline. Discipline over conviction. You can be certain that something's going to happen, but if it doesn't do what you think it's going to do, you got to get out of the way, right? If you're on the wrong side of the trade, you've got to have discipline. You can't be a conviction, right? If you want to hold steady like a rock in the face of adversity, well, all I can say is be prepared to drown like a rock. Because if this market just keeps going like this one is and you're on the wrong side of it, you're going to get chewed up. So in the end, you got to have discipline in whatever it is that you're doing. Let's look at the ending numbers. You know, they weren't up that much today. What you saw today that was interesting is the Russell outperformed. The Russell's been lagging. If we start with the Dow here, we were up about 64, 16,027.5. It looks like S&P's up 10.5, 1830 now, right up at 1830. Highs are 1850, I believe, right at 1850, and it looks like that's where it's going. You know, it doesn't have to get there tomorrow, but that looks like where it's going. Composite over the highs, or right at the highs, 39 up, 42.40. And we got the NDX at highs, 32.25, 36.59.5 at the highs. Russell 15.25 up today, 11.47 3/4. Big moves, right? Big pushes. We had strength across the board. You had it in the bonds, you had it in the stocks, you had it in gold, you had it everywhere. I mean, it was almost like, you know, total, you know, flip the switch, risk on for the last, actually about the last 3 days. And it wasn't as if volume was huge, but volume did pick up today. You know, if you look at the chart here, you can see volume picking up as we're going up. That's actually bullish. As long as it doesn't, you know, skyrocket and, you know, have some sort of a blow-off move, it's doing what it's supposed to, and that is climbing higher. So let's just start with this one since we're on it. The high here is 42.46. This is the NASDAQ composite. We got to 42.40. I expect we're going to hit that high tomorrow. You know, now maybe this is the one that starts a little bit of the retrace, and there will be a retrace. But right now, folks, this market just is climbing, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you just have to respect it. The Dow Jones is still a laggard. Couldn't get over yesterday's highs. It's still hanging there. If we look at the Russell, though, the Russell actually put in a good day. So the Russell got over that bar. Remember the bar from yesterday? It got over it slightly yesterday, which again was a contraindication to the SPX and the Dow. Now the Russell's up here. It actually gets over a high today, it looks like. So that's 1144. Yeah, it closes over the high. And the high over here is 1147. and we're right at it. Actually just closed over that big bar too. That was the quad witching bar. So really at this point you had one little area of resistance here, 1147.43. It's not far enough over that to call it done, but if I take and kind of circle the bars, it's gotten over this one, the quad witching. It's gotten over this zone here that should be very heavy resistance given what was there. Russell did not pick up in volume today like everything else, but yet price expanded, right, and it's up there. Only thing left for the Russell now is what is also, I believe, left for the SPX, which is this breakdown bar. Russell had two, barely got over this one. Now it just skyrocketed today. A lot of short covering here, it looks like, and going for the next one. If it extends tomorrow, right? If it extends a little bit more tomorrow, then it's going to go after this one, you know, before it's done. And I suspect in the end, you know, the way this usually works is the strong indexes carry it. That's the NDX and the IXIC. Then the Russell starts catching up, the SPX starts catching up, and usually the Dow is the one that gets back to the highs when everybody else is about played out. So, you know, if you look at it from that perspective, you're about, on the Russell, you're about, you know, I don't know, 60% of the way there. If we go to, I want to go back to the SPX, I want to see that bar is trying to get back to, that top was 1826.96 and it's over it. So you know, the last big hurdle was here and it's over that one. If this, just like I just said on the Russell, if this stretches away a little bit more, you know you're going here and you're going to go take a shot at the highs. Two swing points up there, that could jolt it one more time. Somewhere in here we will see some sort of a pullback. And you could call today a pullback. I mean, it did pull back, right? But they bought it immediately. And if you call that a pullback, and I'm sure some will draw this in as an ABCD structure, you can see the momentum that's going to carry this thing if in fact that was it. When you get, you know, some of the strongest, one of the things that, you know, I don't think I've talked about before, but one of the things that you can look at to know how strong a move is what kind of pullback do you get. If you don't hardly get a pullback, if this is really it, this is a strong move. And this is going to carry a long way, you know, before it gives anybody a chance to get in. Right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So we'll see. We'll see if this can stretch a little bit more tomorrow. Next week looks like a bunch of economic numbers. Tomorrow you've actually got some economic numbers. You got all the GDP numbers coming out in Europe, which will be a big deal. We know that, you know, there's been slowing over there. There's been talk of stagnation, I guess is the word, but, you know, not expanding. Those are big numbers. You got inflation in China tonight. That will be a big number from the perspective of, can they keep pumping money? Can they keep, you know, moving stuff over in China? And that will be a big number there. So we've got big moves already in place here. We haven't seen it yet, you know, really kick in. I mean, we could use the EEM as an example. We haven't seen it kick in yet overseas, right? If you look at the Hang Seng, for example, if I pop to it, you can see it just hasn't happened over here yet. These guys are just trying to get back, to the swing point lows in this area, right? So they're playing with a swing point high. They'll probably get over this tonight and get back into these lows. The overseas markets have lagged us quite a while now. I mean, we're talking for a good year and a half, 2 years, and they're still lagging us. I expect, you know, if this really is going to pick up, if the economy is going to pick up and we really get things going, right, they will come on gangbusters, right? So that's what you have to expect. I don't know if that's going to happen, but, you know, right now the market certainly is trying to tell us there's strength somewhere and for some reason. So let's go. I want to quickly look at the sectors real quick and see. You know, we had 4 sectors last night that was also reflecting the possibility of pullback. IYT was weak, the transports. Let's see what they did. And they still can't get going. So we don't have anything in the transports. I mean, they're still trying to get over that lower bar. The semiconductors, man, these guys are on fire, huh? This just looks like everything else. I mean, that's a straight back up move. Talk about V-shaped. Not great volume, but you know it's doing it. It's going for the high now. The XLB was a failure last night, and what does it do? It just erases it. So that's one of the failures we looked at. Did not happen. XLE was another one, and XLE actually still is a failure. XLF actually was okay and wanted to try to push a little bit more, and that one's still hanging. This is interesting. So I don't see nearly as much strength in the sectors as I see in the indexes. XLI, same thing, right? Really just hanging. These guys are barely up. I mean, they're up, but not much. Now here's a good one. XLK goes for the highs. That top is 36.05. We close at 36.03, so it'll test it tomorrow. Doesn't have the volume, but it's going to hit it. We'll see if it gets over it and stays over it. IndieX already has, so there's a good chance this one can. Boy, here was another one that was a failure last night and did not resolve today. XLV actually was a breakout last night. I assume they extended, and they did. And XLY was another one of those two-bar reversals, and it also got back over that high. So there's two of them still, jury's out. Flipping through those sectors, they don't look nearly as good as the markets did today. So that tells me people were just chasing big names, right? Places that they could put money in size. So the buyers today look to me to be institutions from that perspective, which is bullish, right? If they're going to put their money to work, they usually tend to do better than the rest of the folks. Let me take a look at the OX markets here and see what those guys did. So I'll start with, you know, and as I already said, bonds were up today. Everything was up. So bonds, nothing special, a little bounce. Bonds look to be trapped here between these two areas now. So, you know, you got this low and that high. That's the little zone that's going to play out. We'll see. You know, you can't expect bonds to go higher and rates to go lower unless you get back into this bar. That bar has volume at the top, so you got to assume it's going to try to get back up there at some point. You know, this sell-off was on nothing, so when it tested down here and failed. So a bounce here makes sense. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't try to extend a little bit. As far as can it get back above here and, you know, shoot back for the highs, we'll have to wait and see when it gets up there closer and see what it looks like. So bonds are still a positive. That's certainly not a negative today. Oil was up $1 yesterday, gave it up. Today was back up slightly. It's testing that high. It had a test failure at the high on lighter volume, if I remember right. No, it actually had heavier volume, so it should test it again. Alright, so that's okay. Let's look at gold. I see a question about gold stocks, so we can look at those while we're here. So gold today up again. You know, this doesn't want to quit either. It seems like anything, you know, all these trades look to be like inflation trades, right? Priming the pump trades. They all look that way because everything goes up, right? So whether it's commodities, whether it's, you know, the commodities have led this last 6 weeks, you know, the beginning of the year until now. You couldn't find a buyer last year, and all you had is buying since the beginning of the year. I mean, here's, you know, the low was basically the last day of the year, and it's been up ever since. So now it's really stretching, you know, not great volume. It's over the swing point high on the weekly. So if I pull the weekly over, you know, it's over the swing point high. It's really nothing special here, but you know, it's climbing, so you can't fault it if it keeps going, and it is going. The question here has to do with the GDX, so let's pop to it. Federico asked, do you think the GDX will break higher or range trade? Well, you got volume today, and that's a this is an interesting one. You don't see this very often, right? I call these things takeaway bars, right? So you go up, and then you take it all away, and then you take it all away again. I mean, that's a totally confused market. You know, I mean, because usually when you see a takeaway bar, that means that, you know, the buyers here are stuck. But then today you reversed right back up and you actually make a new high. So let me see what the weekly looks like on this. Well, there's really nothing to stop it. I mean, it can actually climb more. This is an ABCD structure on the way up now. I mean, on the weekly, right? You've got an A point, a B point, back to a C here, and that takes you about to those highs. So yeah, and you got volume expansion. This looks to climb. So that high is 26.91. We're at 25.85. So another buck 40. That looks pretty doable. It got over that big bar that was the problem, and it's into it now. And a lot of times, if you get deep into that bar, you can actually carry it to the top, which would actually carry you even farther to this swing point high prior and this top of this bar. And those price points are, let me see, about 25. What's the top? 28.64. And over here is 28.40. So first target's 26.91 and then 28.40. So yeah, you can still carry, and it's got the ABCD structure in place now. So yeah, I think the answer is yes. Can it carry? Yeah. Let's see what's next here. Let me see if silver's telling us the same thing. Yeah, silver's getting there. It's lagging, but it's getting there. Let me pop over. I want to see what Europe and the rest of the world looks like real quick. Because, you know, a lot of this has just been us coming back strong. Let me see if it's carrying elsewhere. So, and Europe's going to be important tomorrow because of the GDP numbers. So Europe looks pretty much like us. This is the CAC straight back up. Let's look at the FTSE. And not as strong. Yeah, the FTSE looks a little bit weaker. And the DAX. So the German market. Yeah, just like the CACs. Now the German market actually was stronger before, and so they've got the big bar still to get over, the breakdown bar. So to try to get to the top of that would be the objective for them. The CACs was going to try to get to the highs again, even though I think they're living on borrowed time. It doesn't matter as long as time continues. I'm going to pop over to Asia real quick and see what these guys look like. So here's the Korean market. That one just keeps stair-stepping lower. Let me see what Taipei. This is chips, so I would expect they're trying to rally back up. And they are not as strong as us, but not bad. Yeah, if they get over this bar, they're going back to the highs. Japan has been beaten up. Let's see what they look like. Yeah, they've struggled. So that low was 14,008. They undercut it, less volume. So that looks like a good low. Wow, this looks buyable. Yeah, on the weekly, well, I think you can get back up there, but you know, it does look like one could make a trade on it if they wanted to. And I looked at the Hang Seng. Let me glance at it one more time. So the high was lots of twos. We got to a few more than lots of twos. Yeah, this looks to me like it's going to push back into this zone and test these lows. Okay, so if I think about what's the game plan, right? You got to have a game plan. Okay, so the market didn't do what it's supposed to. That tells you there's more strength here for whatever reason, right? And that doesn't mean that we're just going to continue straight up tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. It could. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there is more strength here, and when you see more strength, then you've got to believe that that strength is going to continue to manifest itself over this time frame, and what we're talking about is a short-term time frame. Right now it's still a big range trade, but you've already broken out on the NDX. You're fixing to test on the IXIC, so you've got breakouts of ranges in other indexes, and especially if it happens in the broader NASDAQ composite, which will be the test tomorrow. It's a little late to try to chase things. I mean, if you were chasing down here, maybe even there it probably felt iffy. It definitely feels iffy up here. So I don't think I want to chase stuff. So you got to be prepared though. You got to have a list. You got to have some go-to stocks. You got to be ready to jump on those stocks when you get the retraces. This morning happened to be a retrace. I didn't believe it, but it was, and it was bought. And so I guess anybody that had their watch list ready jumped on those stocks once they saw it started turning, and they moved into some of them potentially. That's what you got to do. You got to be ready. You got to have your list ready, and when it comes back, you just got to hold your nose and buy some. I suspect the best thing out there, if you're interested, is post-earnings plays. I mean, you need to go through the earnings. I got a list of 100 stocks I gave members of post-earnings plays. I've whittled that down to probably 80-something stocks. I'm going to be sending it out to them tomorrow with a ranking across all of them and giving them a full, 75, 80 stocks in a spreadsheet they can sort themselves and use. So you need that kind of thing, right? Where you rank them, which ones you want to buy first if you can. And you just have that list and you go down it on a bad day, anytime we're seeing the selling, and you find a way to get into some of those. That's what you need to be doing. Remember, 2014 is not going to be 2013. I doubt we're going to have just a straight up year. Matter of fact, we've already seen that's not what we're going to have. So I suspect it's going to be a very choppy year. It's going to be challenging. And if you remember, the long-term trends are probably going to reset at some point. If I pull, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to pull this over. If I pull over the MTTFs, and I look at the MTTFs, right, 87, 81, these are probably going to reset this year. They had a good chance to reset last week. They didn't. They pulled it off. The bulls just can't help themselves. They got to buy. So I suspect these are going to reset. What does that mean? That means that on a weekly chart, you're going to see a swing point low broken and stay broken on a weekly basis. Again, we were down there, but we wouldn't stay down there. That will happen. And when it does, right, it's going to feel like the world's ending. But I suspect you're going to see that this year. You didn't see it all last year. Never got one reset all year long. That's stretching it. And and that's why it feels so stretched up here. It is stretched. So don't just expect the same playbook, right? Those post-earnings plays, that's where you need to focus, because those are the ones that will lead for the next 2 months, 3 months, right? And they're the ones that you'll be able to go to. So get your list out and get ready. All right, folks, I'm out of here. I'm going to call it a night. I hope you did all right today. If you didn't, get your game plan on. Get your, get things right. Get set up the way you need to be set up. Don't fight a strong market. Find a way to go with it. Have a great night. Take care of yourself. Until next time, I'm LA. This is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a great one, folks. Take care. Good night.